Next on Arizona 360, teachers walk out and force classrooms to close.
We have so many parents in so many different places in this district that are living in a state of poverty.
What organizers say it will take to end their protest.
This is going to take bipartisan effort, and if you don't have educators in the room, how are you going to know what educators feel?
And what's next in the case of a Border Patrol agent acquitted of murder?
Finding a police officer guilty of using force has a really high bar.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thank you so much for joining us. In an unprecedented move, thousands of teachers across Arizona made good on a vote to walk out this week. This after demands that state lawmakers pass legislation to raise their pay and increase funding for schools went unmet. Day one of their protest brought many to the state capitol on Thursday.
Can you even believe this is happening right now in Arizona? Can you honestly even believe that this is taking place?
Teachers in Tucson traveled up to Phoenix together that morning. The grassroots group, Arizona Educators United, and the teachers union, Arizona Educators Association, are leading the Red for Ed movement and rejected a proposal from Governor Doug Ducey to raise teacher salaries by 19% over 3 school years. We learn more about their demands and issues with the governor's plan from Jason Freed, president of the Tucson Educators Association. What exactly, AEA, Arizona Educators United, what do the two groups want?
We need to see significant salary increases for all educators. Right now, the governor's plan only proposes increases for teachers. We know that there's a number of other educators in the system that deserve salary increases, and so that's part of this. It's making sure that this is a funding mechanism that is sustainable, and that we're not stealing this money from other areas that are in great need. And we want to see some infrastructure. We have buildings that are literally crumbling. We have books that predate our students. The average computer in Tucson Unified is 12 years old. That means that a high school senior, right now, today's high school senior, that computer was purchased when they were in kindergarten.
If legislators come forward with a plan that gives teachers a 10% raise right now and a sustainable plan for the near future, will that be enough to stop this?
Not if it's specifically teachers. That's the term that the governor continues to use.
Do you want to see a bill, passage of a bill, or something signed?
What we should be seeing is a budget. We should be seeing a full budget that's passed by both the House and the Senate and approved by the governor.
For a lot of people, if their boss were to say, I understand you want a 20% raise, but I can't give you that now, here's what I can do, and then here's a plan for the future, that might be enough of a good faith effort.
Absolutely, and I think looking at those kinds of mechanisms, I'm feeling a number, when I talk to educators, I feel that the structure that the governor has is one that is doable. And so it's not a matter of, people are saying I want X percent this very moment, but it is a matter of let's see substantial pay raises. Let's see then a plan to get ourselves to significant pay raises so that we stop outsourcing our teachers.
Are negotiations actually taking place right now?
I think the governor believes negotiations are taking place. I don't think substantive negotiations are taking place because he's not bringing everybody into the room. If you're not bringing educators into the room, if you're not bringing superintendents, and not just a handful of selected individuals, but truly a widespread group of superintendents, a widespread group of educators, leaders, and classroom teachers and classified folks. If he's not having those discussions, if he's not bringing both Democrats and Republicans to meet into these discussions and these debates, then no, he's not really. What he's doing is he's meeting with some folks who are of similar thought as he is, and that's how they're trying to move forward with the budget. This is going to take bipartisan effort, and if you don't have educators in the room, how are you going to know what educators feel?
It seems as though both groups are the governor and the organizations are holding each other's feet to the fire. Who's going to flinch first?
I don't know how educators can back down, because really we're standing up for our kids, and so we really have this mission, and this mission is to take care of our students. We accepted that we're not going to be in the most lucrative of professions, but to be asking educators to be educating our kids during the day and then have a second job in the evening and the weekends. for our educators to be on government assistance because their salaries are so low. Those are the kinds of things that are really unconscionable, and I'm tired of seeing my colleagues leave the profession or leave to go to other states to continue to be an educator because it's the only way that they can pay their bills.
Dozens of districts made the call early this week to close, affecting tens of thousands of students. That includes the Tucson Unified School District, which has more than 44,000 students. At a news conference, Superintendent Gabriel Trujillo said the district decided to cancel classes Thursday after more than half of its 3,200 teachers said they would not come to work.
We very clearly see thousands of employees operating within district procedures and protocol, using our ASAP attendance reporting hotline, using all appropriate time reporting procedures to take 1 day of sick or personal. And by doing that, they're honoring their contract.
Later, we asked him to explain the district's contingency plan and how a prolonged walkout could affect the rest of the school year.
I am fully aware of the extent to which that parents depend on our schools as a safe place for their kids. We have so many parents in so many different places in this district that are living in a state of poverty, that work 2, 3, or 4 jobs, that don't have sick and personal days, and would have to readjust schedules and potentially face lost wages in the event of a work stoppage. So I felt it was incumbent upon us to explore every possible opportunity to be able to keep schools open, at least for basic childcare. Now, with that being said, we also have a responsibility to ensure that every single child and employee under our care walks into an environment that can guarantee their safety. And when we reviewed final absentee reports just this morning for all of our different employment groups and saw the thousands of employees that have called in for Thursday, we knew that there was no longer a guarantee that we had secured the appropriate amount of personnel necessary to guarantee safe supervision of kids for Thursday. So we made a call to close the schools of the Tucson Unified District.
At the state level, things are very uncertain right now. At the local level, is there anything that you can do to get qualified adults to be in the classroom, to be with these children, to stave off issues like you said, childcare, families who can't afford to be home with their kids?
We're in a very difficult situation, to understate it. I really believe in the power of the classroom teacher, and one of the variables that's not talked about is that at this time in the year, you in a sense have thousands of students that have bonded relationally to their teachers. We are in the final stretches of the school year. We have young people that have spent the last 8 or 9 months with their classroom teacher. They know how their classroom teacher thinks and feels and has read their moods and has bonded to them relationally as well as instructionally, that it would be incredibly difficult to ask a child to adjust to a whole new set of teachers with just weeks to go in the school year.
At the state level, we often hear that school boards, school districts could be doing more to put more money into teachers' pockets. Is that a fair assessment?
It's very difficult to put everything on local school boards, because if my allotment or my budget or the amount of funding that I've been given is, let's say, $100, and I have $100 to take care of 10 employees, it's easier for me to make sure everybody gets $10 per employee. But when you take that $100 and you say, now you get 80, now you get 70, now you get 50, make it work for your 10 employees, I think that's unfair. I think it's unfair to put that on the backs of our school boards, our hardworking school board members, and our administrators, and the superintendents of this state. And that's exactly what's been happening over the last 9 years, especially since 2009.
Are you concerned about the message that students and families are getting as a result of a walkout?
I'm concerned that that message could become a negative one the longer that the walkout continues. What I've seen with the general direction of the walk-ins that have been facilitated, the positive momentum that has been expressed to me, that I've seen with community members that I've met in the community, with people that have approached me in my travels throughout the district, is right on for the teachers. It's about time. I want somebody investing in my child. I'm afraid that that enthusiasm will turn into a different direction if we're looking at a long-term walkout that threatens graduation ceremonies and graduation requirements and the ability of our 8th graders to promote, the difficulty of promoting kindergartners to first. That will take a whole different direction from a family's perspective if we're looking at 1 week, 2 weeks, or even longer out.
Educators in public school districts have largely driven the Red for Ed movement. To a lesser extent, charter school teachers are also involved. For more insight into their roles, we turn to Charlene Mendoza, principal of the Arizona College Prep Academy in Tucson, which is part of the Arizona Charter Schools Association. Many school districts throughout the state of Arizona have closed their doors.
Correct.
Same can be said for charters?
There are some. I did informally poll a lot of our area charter schools, and the great majority of them are participating somehow, whether that's through a school closure, through a teacher walkout, for 1 day, for multiple days, for as long as the strike takes, to people working on the redouts and standouts on Broadway, to people who are, just business as usual.
Why aren't we seeing a greater movement on behalf of charter teachers?
Well, I think part of it is a grassroots organization effort. The Red for Ed movement and all of this has happened very quickly. And I think among some of the bigger and more traditional districts, there's already a network of people who work on some of these issues as liaisons with the unions or other things like that. And that doesn't necessarily extend out with charter schools, who are by and large not part of the Arizona teachers unions. So I think to that end, the outreach has taken a little bit longer.
This will certainly cause some issues in the state of Arizona, could financially hurt some people. Is it worth it?
What I'm thinking about here, and again, I've been a resident in Tucson my whole life except for college, came back home to do this work. And what I really think is that we know that there has been chronic underfunding of the entire educational system for years. This is not a brand new development. We can't afford to keep not dealing with this issue. So, the timing may be bad and the circumstances may not be perfect, but I do think that this is a moment where we have a governor who has put forward a plan. Again, I find lots of imperfections with it, but I think at least it's starting a dialogue. I think we're seeing legislators who are participating in that process and trying to come up with some solutions as well. And we certainly have galvanized the public, the business community. So I do think it's worth it right now, because this is a moment where we have that collective will. And I just don't know we've seen that before.
Did educational options somehow cause this?
Again, a very complicated question. I think it's hard to point to one particular source. To me, the biggest issue really, if you look at the state budget, and I'm referring to some graphs that were put together by the Children's Alliance. I think Senator Bradley has also circulated this to people in his district, and I happen to live there. I think what we really need to look at is providing those revenue sources. And one of the biggest reasons we have not had more in our revenue source has been vouchers, or private school tax credits. So to me, I think more so than school options, it's public money funding private choices.
You are part of the Arizona Charter Schools Association, though you're not representing them today.
Correct. I am a member. Our school is a member of the association.
Okay. Is there a thought that you would like to be communicated about this association saying we applaud the governor's plan? Is that something that you feel is part of this discussion?
I think the association has a difficult position representing, again, an entire gamut of heterogeneous organizations. However, I do think that the association and everyone in it is absolutely supportive of anybody's effort to work on this funding issue. The Charter Association has been working on equitable funding proposals through lawsuits, through advocacy for a long time. And I think that their support of the governor's plan is really coming from we have to get started somewhere. So I think that they would support, again, my opinion is that it would be very difficult for all of us not to support anything that's going to help deal with this, again, comprehensive look at how we can increase the underfunding in Arizona schools.
Critics of Governor Ducey's plan to boost teacher pay question its sustainability, while supporters say the revenue sources are sound. The governor's office says more than 80% of the funding will come from state revenues. The rest comes from money freed up because of a drop in people utilizing state services or postponed initiatives like $8 million in new funding for Arizona's university system. Governor Ducey stands by his proposal and urged the legislature to act. We asked former State Treasurer Dean Martin, who served from 2007 to 2011, about the feasibility of that plan. He joined us from Phoenix.
Anytime you want to raise funding for something, it comes from one of two places. Either it's going to come from new money because of economic growth, or existing money by cutting somewhere else.
Based on your analysis of what the governor has proposed, where is it coming from? He says it's coming from growth that will come over the next few years.
If you take all the money that is scheduled to come in as a result of the current economic growth that we're at, you can cover the first, a good chunk of the first part of the pay raise from that. The problem is how long this current economic growth is going to last. Although we're coming out of the recession, we're back to where we were, or we're getting back to where we were before this bubble popped. We're also in a situation where we're about to set a record. In this next year, we're going to have the longest expansion, the longest growth in American history since World War II. So the best post-war economy since World War II, and that won't last forever. And so a lot of the economists are predicting that a year or two we can pretty much count on growth, but 3-4 years out we're probably due for another recession because this economic growth has gone on for so long. And that's really where the question comes from. This money, this new growth that we're getting now is probably not as sustainable by the time the next recession hits.
20% by 2020, is it doable without raising taxes?
It is. It is doable, but it will require a change in priority. It'll require that the state changes how it spends its money, and it will require that districts change the way they spend money. You're not going to see a 20% increase in salaries if we see the money that the state gives getting siphoned off for other programs. I mean, Tucson Unified School District spends more on administration than any other district. They spend over $1,000 per pupil on administration. Most districts, it's about $650. So, you're going to see, you won't see a 20% increase if you don't mandate that money goes directly to those teachers.
To be fair, as the governor has said, more dollars have been pumped into education. You're saying they've just not gone to where they most needed to be.
We really need to think about our priorities beyond just doing more. I think the debate we always run into is how can we do more? And it should be, how can we do better? Doing better is getting money in the classroom. I really think we ought to consider, should any administrator make more than double what the lowest teacher gets paid? I mean, why? Why should that happen? Why should we be spending so much on things that aren't in the classroom? Right now, the average in Tucson Unified School District, it only takes about 3 students in the classroom to pay the teacher's salary. What's happening to the other 18, 19, 20 students in that classroom and the money for that? And so we really need to refocus our effort on what can we do to drive money back in the classroom, what can we do to save money and be more efficient, because it's not an endless well. You can't go on and just keep throwing money at this problem. We've got to be throwing the money where it's needed most, which is teachers, which is classroom. That's what this whole discussion is about. But it's really unfortunate that we've seen, as we've come out of this recession and money has increased, it hasn't been going to the teachers. It hasn't been going to the classroom. And I think that's the real travesty here, and that's why so many people are upset, is things are recovering. Why isn't classroom spending recovering? And it's not just the state's fault. There's a lot of people that have been putting their money in their hands in the till, and all of them need to answer for that.
Can a governor really say these raises will go into the base for this year, the year after, and the following year, even if the leadership in the state changes? Is it a constitutional fix then?
The only way you can bind a future legislature is a constitutional amendment. Anything you passed in legislation could be overturned by a future legislature. Now, the reality is who's going to want to cut teacher salary at the state legislature? You're not going to see that. And so if the state gets in and says, look, this is money that is only to be given to teachers, it cannot be spent on other things, it's going to be very difficult for a future legislature to undo that.
While the focus has been on demonstrations over pay for teachers and staff, another protest also caught our attention this week outside the federal courthouse in Tucson after a verdict in the trial for a Border Patrol agent accused of murder. Jurors found Lonnie Swartz not guilty of second-degree murder for the 2012 death of a Mexican teenager. Swartz fired through the international border fence, hitting and killing 16-year-old Jose Antonio Elena Rodriguez in Nogales, Sonora. After Monday's verdict, Arizona Public Media heard from the vice president of the Border Patrol Union, along with supporters of Elena Rodriguez's family, who all followed the trial closely.
If you look at the entire circumstances, like the jury did, the reality is you had a federal agent that was doing his job, defending our borders, and he was attacked by a criminal element.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back! When are you attacked? What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
The jury is guilty. They are guilty. They are irresponsible. They didn't do their job. But I mean, I was here enough to know, and I've seen what the family's gone through, that there's no way he should be able to walk.
And he was attacked in a way that could have killed him, or other agents, and he did the right thing.
No justice! No peace!
They got to put themselves in the shoes of the family.
Their struggle has become our struggle because we're all at risk to be shot by Border Patrol or law enforcement.
Shut it down!
Impunity will remain the unofficial law of the land here on the border.
You know, and if in his own mind and heart, he should know he's guilty.
The message is you can continue doing your job the way you've been doing it, which is the correct way. And if you get attacked or you get, if your life is in danger, you have the right to defend yourself.
The next night, a vigil in Nogales on both sides of the border honored Elena Rodriguez. While jurors acquitted Swartz of second-degree murder, they could not agree on lesser charges of involuntary manslaughter and voluntary manslaughter. Prosecutors could pursue another trial on those charges, and the possibility will come up at a hearing next month. And for analysis into that case and the trial, I'm joined by two local journalists who covered it, Perla Treviso from the Arizona Daily Star and Paul Ingram from Tucson Sentinel. My thanks to both of you for being here. How is it that it was an acquittal and then a hung jury on those two lesser charges?
Yes, it is very rare that an agent is even prosecuted or indicted for a shooting. And so this was one of the few ones, at least the third one in Arizona in the last 20 or 30 years.
Paul, Perla said this is rare because, in fact, this is the first time we've had a federal agent shooting south into Mexico. Moving into this trial, was this case in an unusual place?
Very much so. I mean, there was a period of about 2 years where Border Patrol agents shot 5 teenage boys. And really, Lonnie Swartz is the only one who was ever prosecuted for it. All the other agents were found that it was a good shoot by the Department of Justice. So this case really is unique in that way. And it's also really a rare prosecution of a Border Patrol agent for using force.
We think about this case, and there is video.
Mm-hmm.
The jury actually traveled to the site during the evening hours when this, took place. How unusual is it for a jury to have access to so much of what actually took place?
In this particular case, you had infrared cameras that actually could see the incident, but one camera was about half a mile away, and the other camera was close, but one of the operators didn't actually focus at the camera when he zoomed in. So there's parts of the incident that we can see, but the image is blurry, and you never really have sort of a perfect camera angle during an incident.
The prosecution made a video of the two cameras side by side, so you could kind of follow what was going on the U.S. side and then follow what was going on the Mexican side, mm-hmm. right? And so from one of the cameras, you can clearly see Agent Swartz approaching the fence. You can see him, with his weapon drawn. You can see him moving the 45 feet along the fence. You can see him shooting again, stepping back, and shooting again. But then on the other side, as Paul was mentioning, especially the infrared, you can kind of see figures that are making a rock throwing motion, but it's hard to discern how many they are and what happens to them. There was also a pole that was obstructing the view from that angle, so that had some limitations to what the jury was seeing and how much of a full picture they were getting of what had happened that night.
I mean, one thing that's important about this case is that where Jose Antonio was standing, he was below a 14-foot cliff And then, of course, Schwartz was standing behind a 22-feet tall fence. So the terrain really does matter, and the jury got to see that. What's interesting is that it was actually the defense that really argued that they wanted to show the scene, but I tend to think that for the prosecution it was also useful because they wanted to show that where Lonnie Schwartz was standing, he was in some ways protected by the fence, and he was really at a different angle. He was up to 90 feet away from Jose Antonio when he first started shooting.
The defense really tried to portray that an agent here felt that his life was in danger, despite the terrain, the geography. But the jurors also saw the video where an agent reloaded his service pistol at least once, and there were, is it 16 shots that were fired at this young man?
In 34 seconds.
Yeah, so he walked up to the fence and he fired 3 shots. And then he moved down to the fence and then he emptied his magazine. He fired 10 shots. Then when he was moving, he reloaded and then fired 3 more. At that point, then he reached down, picked up the magazine that he dropped, put it in his pants, and then heads off camera. So we do get a sense of how many shots he fired, and we know that 10 of those rounds hit Jose Antonio, 8 in the back and 2 in the head.
Mm-hmm. Despite the evidence, despite what was presented at trial, this was a tough case going in.
It's important for people to understand that that finding a police officer guilty of using force has a really high bar. It's difficult because the way that the law is structured is really set up in such a way to protect officers that when they use their weapon, they're acting above and beyond what normal citizens can do, and so the law tends to protect that and tends to protect their actions. So it means really that the bar for prosecution is very high, and also it makes it very easy for the defense to build a case or to really kind of structure a case around just creating reasonable doubt.
The defense, all they need is for a juror to be unsure, right? It has to be a unanimous decision. So even if the prosecution has a really strong case, all the defense needs is for one juror to be, well, I don't know, they were throwing rocks, it was dark, I'm not sure I can do this, or I'm not sure what my decision would be. And if they're not sure, then that's it.
Because the defense presented that being on the border at night with rocks, when perhaps if you hear a rock hit a fence, you won't know if it's a gunshot or if it's a rock. I mean, there's a very clear and present danger at the moment.
And going back to Paul's point, I think, while the defense kept telling the jurors, Border Patrol is not like us, you have to put yourselves in his shoes. They're not in the comfort of a courtroom, and the prosecution, on the other hand, tried to tell them, they are like us and they're human like us, and they should be held accountable just like we would. And so that was an interesting thing to see that, well, one side tried to portray the Border Patrol and the agents as so different that you can't even imagine what they go through, and the prosecution trying to bring it back to they're just humans like us.
Okay, very insightful. My thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for this week. If you have any feedback, send us an email at arizona360@azpm.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.